guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to update my eyeshadow bank. This is a project that I've been doing now for just over a year. I started last year and it's kind of in place of my low buy. So in previous years before that, I did a low buy where I was tracking my makeup purchasing and just trying to make sure that I didn't spend too much on makeup and brought too much in. I do feel like now I have cooled my desire to buy makeup, I guess, a lot, because I just don't purchase makeup the same way I used to, although I have purchased a couple of things in the last month, but it's all things that I need in categories that I don't have too much kind of overwhelming me. However, there is still one category in my makeup collection that I am still having issues with, and that is eyeshadows, hence me doing my eyeshadow bank. This product was inspired by Lara Force, and I love her channel. I love watching her. Every time she posts a video I click on it. I just adore her, and she did this project and I straight away knew that I wanted to incorporate it because I feel like it's the perfect way to cool eyeshadows, because the way you can buy more eyeshadows is by using what you already have. So I do have a couple of rules and I'm going to go through them in a second, but before I do that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So like I said, you do earn points by using your eyeshadow collection, and that way you can then purchase eyeshadows. Like I said, I did it last year too, so I do incorporate my points from last year into this year. So I will have a starting point too, which I will talk to in a second, but again, before I do that, I'm going to go through the rules that I have. So the ways that I personally can earn points is, the first thing is no pan left behind. I earn 1 point per no pan left behind palette, so yeah, just 1 point there. For 10 uses, so every time I use one kind of individual eyeshadow, so one pan of eyeshadow 10 times, I get 1 point as well. If I reach 100 uses on an eyeshadow, I actually get 5 points for that, which is quite a lot, because how the point system works is every time I reach 10 points, that could equal me buying one eyeshadow, so one pan of eyeshadow, either a single or starting off a palette. So 100 uses means like 5 points, which is half of one eyeshadow, but it obviously takes a lot of use to reach 100 uses. Then I also have, if I hit a pan, I also get 1 point, not too high, but I feel like I don't want to use like focus in and get in a position where I just want to hone in and hit pan on, like, you know, with a really narrow brush or anything like that. I don't want to change my mindset of, like, you know what I mean, like pinpoint panning. So only 1 point there. However, if I finish a complete eyeshadow, which is also quite a task, I get 5 points as well. So those are the main categories that I do. At the end of last year too, if I decluttered something, I did end up counting 5 points per decluttered shadow. So if I decluttered a palette with 10 shadows in it, that would have been 50 points, so 5 times 10, and that's how I count that. I'm going to try not to obviously use declutterers to buy shades, but if I do that, I still kind of get 2 out, 1 in, so that's still fine. So those are the ways I can earn points. So let's start off with January. I did mention, like I said, that I had points from last year. I actually ended up going into the positive. I was a negative for majority of last year just because I was gifted palettes, things like that. And that's another rule, by the way. I am not allowed to go into the negative on my own, so I can't purchase anything to go into negative. The only way I can purchase something is if I have enough points to spend. However, if I'm gifted something, you know, if someone gives me a palette, or, you know, for some reason if I would get PR, that I am allowed to go into the -4. I'm still going to count the points, but of course, since it's gifted, I'm not gonna like say no to that palette, but I'm still going to count the points, and that's how I ended up in negative. So I was in negative for most of the year, but towards the end I was really working on getting to the positive, and I did end up declaring a couple of palettes which helped at the end of the year. So my starting balance in January was 286 points, which is quite good. That is 28.5 eyeshadows about, so I could definitely spend some if I wanted. But again, let me talk you through if I did that in the past month and also what points I earned. So the first category we have was no pan left behind. So that is every time I use like every single shade in a palette, and I'm only allowed to do that once per palette in my collection. And I only hit that on one of my palettes in the month of January, and that is my Anastasia Soft Glam palette. That is my pan palette for the year, and I did hit no pan left behind, so that is one singular point there. Moving on to the next category, which is 10 uses. This is usually where I earn majority of my points, because you know, I kind of, if I use different type of eyeshadows like throughout the month, 10 uses is still realistic to hit on more than one. So I usually hit quite a few here. And January is no different. I actually got 9 points in this category. So the first shadow that I have is my Burberry Rosewood shadow, which is the shade that I use for my brows. I did reach for that one 30 times for a total of 380 uses. And I'm also counting the uses from last year as well because I have them tracked. So I'm just continuing on the uses I had then. So again, quite a high number. The next one was the Pastel Roses Starlight, which is a single that I have in my Pan palette. I used that one 10 times for a total of 20 tracked. I have a shade from my Huda Beauty Gold Obsessions palette, and that is the 6th shade in the palette, which I had in my Project Pan. If you saw my update a couple days ago, you would have known that it's had. Anyway, I used that an additional 10 times for a total of 20 uses tracked. Then we have my Colourpop Kaleidoscope eyeshadow, which is also in my Pan palette. I used that one 10 for a total of 20 times tracked. I also have my Cleona Renaissance single shadow, which I used also 10 times for a total of 20 tracked. And then 2 more shadows from palettes. We had again one from my Pan palette, which is the Anastasia Soft Glam palette. I used the shade Sienna, an additional 10 uses for a total of 150 uses tracked. So again, a very, very high amount. And lastly, for those points, I ended up using the Huda Beauty Nude Light Obsession shade, the 3rd shade in the palette, which is like a baby pink shade. It's actually, I have it in my look today. It's not like this shade, but it's what I used in my like blending out area. Anyway, I used that one 10 times for a total of 10. So that is 9 points for 10 uses. For the 100 use threshold, I did not earn any points at all. I did not get to that point. Of course, we are very early in the year, and even though I'm counting my uses from last year, I wasn't close to anything really. But yeah, maybe next month I will hit that. We'll see. I have one shade that I'm very close to, which you might have heard in the numbers. Anyway, so the next category though is pans, and I did hit one pan in the month of January. You might have already seen it if you saw my updates, and that was from my Pan palette, which again, I do have 2 parts from my Pan palette. I have the Soft Glam palette, which I panned last year, as well as a BYOP with singles, and the pan came from my BYOP. That is the Pastel Roses shade in Starlight, which is a beautiful, beautiful eyeshadow. I love that shade so much, so I pan on that one, giving me 1 point. And then lastly, the last category we have is finished eyeshadows, and I actually finished one shade, which was really exciting. And again, I did already mention it a little bit. It was in my Project Pan, and that is the Huda Beauty Gold Obsessions shade in like the 6th shade in the palette. So finishing that up, I got another 5 points added into my bank. So those are all the points that I earned in January. And again, the starting point, or like the starting balance I had, was 286 points. And I ended up earning 16 additional points, meaning I now stand at 302 total points, which equals just over 30 eyeshadows, which is amazing. That means I could buy 30 eyeshadows worth. So for example, like 2 Natasha Denona midi palettes, or 30 singles, or any combinations of palettes, meaning like, you know, total 30 shadows. And in the month of January, I also did not purchase anything. I'm really proud of that. I did not bring any eyeshadows into my collection, so very, very happy. Of course, that might change. I haven't really had my eyes on anything apart from a couple Cleona singles. I was really debating picking them up this month. They did have a sale going as well, but I kind of refrained against it because I'm trying not to spend the points as soon as I bring them in. So that's kind of slightly tempting, and also some more of my Natasha Denona like midi palettes. I have a couple on my wish list that I want to get. However, I'm not in a rush because I also know that I don't want to buy anything that's just going to sit there, and I'm doing a lot of eyeshadow projects this year, and I'm focusing a lot on my singles, for example. So buying palettes might mean that I neglect them. So we'll see. I'm going to hold up for a little bit, but who knows, maybe hopefully through February I'll change my mind. So again, we're going to see, but for now I'm standing at 302 points, which I'm very, very proud of. So that is kind of my wrap up of my January eyeshadow bank. Again, I'm very pleased. 16 points means about an eyeshadow and a half, and you know, of course it could be higher, but I feel like at the beginning of the year you kind of just play around with different things, and if I can keep up around maybe 20 uses each month, that will be amazing. Maybe more, we'll see how I get on, but I'm gonna leave you here, and I hope you guys are having an amazing day wherever you are. If you're doing an eyeshadow bank, by the way, let me know how you're doing. If you're tracking your usage like I am, have you also been inspired by Laura, or are you doing a different type of low buy? Let me know. But yeah, as always, I hope you guys are having the best day, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye guys.